Hello everyone, my name is Robert, and welcome back to our channel. Friends, after hearing today's story, you will find yourself wondering what punishment the person who committed the crime deserves. You will also realize which punishment is appropriate. But despite all the evidence being available, it took the court 17 years to reach a verdict in this case. So, what is the full story? To find out, make sure to watch this video till the end, so you can understand what the accused did and how the legal system of our country worked to capture him. Today's story begins 17 years ago in Muzaffarnagar, India. In this area, there is place Mohammad Nagar, where a family used to live. The family included a 27 to 28-year-old young man named Khalil, who lived happily with his family. Khalil had recently gotten married, but things didn't work out between him and his wife, as his wife was in love with someone else. She didn't want to stay with Khalil, so she left him to be with the person she loved. Khalil had been greatly troubled by this as well, and when his wife left him, he didn't let it weigh too heavily on his mind. He began to immerse himself in his life, focusing on his family, serving his parents, and dedicating more attention to his work. It was March 3rd, 2007, a slightly chilly day when suddenly there was a knock on Khalil's door. The person knocking from outside was calling out, "Khalil, come out quickly. We need to talk to you." When Khalil opened the door, he asked them, "What do you need to talk to me about? What's so urgent?" They responded, "Come with us, and we'll tell you what it is." Without much thought, Khalil went with them. He couldn't understand what they wanted to talk about, but he figured he'd go along to see what they had to say. An hour passed, but Khalil hadn't returned. At that time, mobile phones weren't as common as they are today. There was usually just one phone in the house, and everyone used the same one. After 3 hours had passed and Khalil still hadn't returned, his family grew increasingly worried, wondering where their son had gone. His family began searching for him, looking around the neighborhood, but they couldn't find him anywhere. The next morning, they received the news that a body had been found in the 3rd lane near Khalil's house. When the police were informed, they quickly arrived at the scene, retrieved the body, and sent it for a post-mortem. The police had no idea whose body it was and couldn't easily identify it, since there was no widespread use of social media at the time to post pictures or information. The police spread the word around the neighborhood, notifying people that if anyone was missing, or if anyone knew who the deceased was, they should inform the police station. When Khalil's parents heard this news, they rushed to the scene. Upon seeing the body, they broke down in tears, crying uncontrollably because it was Khalil's body. The police informed that your son had been shot by someone, which now makes it a murder case. You'll need to file a formal complaint at the police station against your son's killer before we can begin our investigation. Once the complaint was lodged, the police began their investigation. They first questioned Khalil's father and asked if he had any suspicions or if he knew anything, like whether his son had been in any arguments or conflicts. Khalil's father mentioned that the last 2 people who had taken his son with them were named Shakil and Ilyas. Both Khalil's father and the police became suspicious of these 2 individuals, as they were the last ones seen with Khalil. Khalil's father told the police that these 2 men were the last to take his son from home, after which he never returned. The police then went to their houses and arrested them to inquire how Khalil had died. The suspects claimed that after talking to Khalil, he left, and they didn't know where he went or who killed him. The police recorded their statements along with others and continued their investigation. Gradually, evidence pointed toward Shakil, and it became clear that he had a motive to kill Khalil. The police interrogated Shakil very strictly, and during this time, he confessed to his crime. The story then traces back to 2004, when a girl named Gulista, about 20 or 21 years old, was involved. She wasn't particularly focused on her studies, so her parents decided to find her a suitable match for marriage. After searching, they found someone they liked, and the marriage was arranged. After the wedding, Gulista moved in with her in-laws and started living there. So, at first, everything was going well, and Gulista was managing her household. But gradually, Gulista and her husband began to argue, and there were frequent disagreements between them. They started fighting over small things. Her husband thought that Gulista was the type of woman who could never handle this relationship properly or manage their home well. For this reason, her husband divorced her and sent her back to her parents' house. He told her family that their daughter wasn't right, that he doubted her character, and she didn't do any household work, always fought with him. After her husband left her at her parents' house, Gulista started living with them. Her parents began searching for another match for her. They found a boy named Khalil, who they heard was a very good person, kind-hearted, with a great personality. They arranged Gulista's marriage with Khalil, and soon they were married. Khalil was a hard-working man, always engaged in some work and never sitting idle. He had a habit of doing something or the other, and often traveled to different places to work or learn something. He would take his wife along with him wherever he went. One time, Khalil took his wife to a city where they met a man named Shakil. From the first meeting, Shakil and Gulista liked each other. They stayed in touch and met frequently, developing feelings for each other. But when Khalil returned home with his wife, Shakil began to feel restless because he wanted to see Gulista. He would say, "The one I love, the one I care for, has left." At that time, phones and messaging weren't very common, so people would meet in person or make STD calls because not everyone had a phone at home. So, both of them were getting restless. On one hand, Gulista wanted to talk to Shakil, and on the other, Shakil wanted to talk to her. Then, one day, Shakil met a man named Ilyas, who coincidentally was Gulista's brother-in-law. As Shakil and Ilyas became friends, they started talking to each other and developed a close bond. Ilyas, who supported their relationship, began helping Shakil meet Gulista secretly at her in-laws' house. They would meet and talk to each other in secret. As time went by, they felt that their secret meetings were leading them towards wanting to live together. They kept meeting secretly, but eventually, Gulista left her in-laws and moved in with Shakil. Once she left Khalil for Shakil, rumors and gossip about her spread in the community. People started making up stories about how Khalil's wife had left him for another man. Shakil, now confident that Gulista was with him, wanted Khalil to divorce her. He went to Khalil and asked him to divorce Gulista, but Khalil refused. This refusal led to constant arguments between Shakil and Khalil. Shakil would often go to Khalil's house or catch him somewhere and insist, "Divorce Gulista." But Khalil always responded that he wouldn't. The tension between them grew as Shakil pressed for the divorce. Shakil and Ilyas formed a plan, realizing that Khalil wasn't going to divorce her easily. They thought they needed to take drastic action. Shakil suggested removing Khalil from their path entirely so that there would be no need for a divorce, and that Shakil could marry Gulista. One day they went to Khalil's house. Shakil and Ilyas asked him to come along with them, as they had something important to discuss. Khalil told them to speak right there, but they insisted it was necessary to end the matter once and for all. Khalil agreed to go with them, curious about what they had to say. As they walked some distance, Shakil told him, "Look, if she doesn't want to stay with you, just divorce her. Your life will be peaceful, and so will ours. We won't bother you anymore." But Khalil, still adamant, said, "No matter what happens, I will not divorce her." At this point, a fight broke out between the three of them. During a similar fight, in a fit of rage, Shakil fired his guns against Khalil, and when the bullet hit, Khalil died on the spot. After Khalil died from the gunfire, Shakir and Ilyas fled the scene, pretending as if they had done nothing and knew nothing about the incident. The police had already heard this story in 2007 and asked Shakil where the weapon used in the shooting was. Shakil and Ilyas eventually provided information, and the police recovered the weapon. The motive became clear when it was found that Khalil's wife was at Shakil's house, indicating that the motive for Khalil's murder was Shakil's desire to marry Khalil's wife. There was another piece of evidence. Khalil's family had seen with their own eyes and heard with their own ears that Shakil and Ilyas had come to their house and taken Khalil with them. Now the police had all the evidence, the motive for Khalil's murder, and the weapons with Shakil and Ilyas's fingerprints on them. Several witnesses had also seen Shakil and Ilyas with Khalil just before his death. Based on all this evidence, the police filed charges, and the case went to court in 2007. After the initial hearing and some arguments, the case kept getting postponed, dragging on for years until 2020. By then, Khalil's family had lost hope of getting justice for their son. Finally, in February 2024, the court gave its verdict, finding Shakir and Ilyas guilty of Khalil's murder and sentencing them to life imprisonment. So, this was today's story. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. We hope you enjoyed the content and found it valuable.